I'm John Rodgers from Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, and today I'm representing the Cuyahoga Valley Association, which is sort of a friends group for the Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area. Once there was a land where creatures now extinct roamed. Eons later, glaciers ground forward. And when they departed, this beautiful valley was left. Now, I have to admit, the glacier that you're looking at is in Alaska, but virtually everything else has been taken within the Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area. And you notice from the title slide that I call it the Beautiful Valley. People recognize now only by mounds and time periods inhabited the same valley. Later, several tribes of American Indians shared the same rich valley as a common hunting and fishing area. All of these are gone, and with them many of the more recent animals like bears and wolves. But the beautiful valley remains. It is ours as the Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area. You're going to see quite a few winter scenes here. I got the idea for this during the winter. And so a lot of my photography of things that I did not have pictures of was done in the winter. Many scenes of great beauty await you. Waterfalls like Brandywine there, the Cuyahoga River, and vistas of the beautiful valley. But small happenings are plentiful too. Fascinating sights lie in meadow, woods, and little streams, and a hornet's nest is one of those. Each season brings new joys, the return of the color green and wildflowers in the spring, the deeper greens of midsummer, the glorious colors in the mood of autumn, and the rolling hills decked out in snow in winter. Visit your beautiful valley. History is written on the face of this beautiful valley. These mounds, the Botsam Mounds, indicate an old culture. The Ohio and Erie Canal, with its towpath and locks, changed this area forever. Some of those old buildings point to an industrial past, and these are the Jate buildings, and this is where the headquarters of the recreation area are. These fields and barns speak of a pastoral setting, a lingering blessing. Step back in history. Visit your historic valley. The Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area contains 33,000 acres between Akron and Cleveland in Ohio. 22 miles of the Cuyahoga River runs through it. It was set aside by Congress in 1974 as part of a movement to have urban parks within the national park system. Many people work towards this outcome, but only two will be mentioned: John Seiberling and Ralph Regula, both of the U.S. Congress. The National Park Service has a very large and extensive program of events in which you may participate. Get their schedule of events, which is a listing of hikes, programs, and all sorts of interesting possibilities. And you can get these at the various visitor centers, which we will mention as we go along. Your tax dollar is well spent in the Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area. I notice even my National Park Service symbol has a little bit of melting snow on the side of it because it also was taken in midwinter. And this picture was taken just on the outside of the recreation area. Within easy reach of this wonderful place is a population of about 4 million people, many of whom live in buildings like this. Do not measure this recreation area as a national park. Accept it as a rare jewel in an area where all of its charm, scenic features, and history might have been destroyed. Visit your beautiful valley, soak up its charm and scenic beauty, and give thanks. Now, these maps are from the National Park Service, but I had to redo some of the titles on them so that you could actually see them. Even so, maybe you should get up into this place and go to one of the visitor centers and get your own. This is the northern part here at Rockside Road. The Canal Visitor Center is right here. Pot, and we will talk about this, Pot is in the recreation area but is administered by others. This is the Bedford Reservation here, Alexander's Mill, the Frazee House, and Tinker's Creek comes in from this way. And then down in here is the two bridges, the Route 82 bridge and the old Station Road bridge. There's a trailhead right in there. The Brecksville Reservation here, that and Bedford are administered by the Metro Parks of Cleveland. Then here's the picture you saw of the Jate, where the National Recreation Area headquarters is today. Now, this is Interstate 271 coming there. This is the I-80, the Ohio Turnpike coming here. And let's go to the second map. And here's Brandywine Falls here. And here, well, I got it marked on this pod a little better. You can see it, Jate. And then Peninsula is right in here. The Kendall Hills and the Kendall Lake and the Kendall Ledges areas here. Happy Days is on 303. This is 303 coming through. And that is one of the visitor centers where you can get those maps. This is Horseshoe Pond in here. And this is a very important place here, the Cuyahoga Valley Environmental Ed Center. We'll talk some more about that. And coming on down here is Indian Mound Trailhead, and that's the southernmost part of the park. Hampton Hills and O'Neill Woods are administered by the Metro Park serving Summit County. And there's one other one I wanted to show you, and it's, well, I'm not seeing it. Here's the covered bridge at Everett. Oh, here it is, Deep Block Quarry. That also is a Metro Park. So we'll go on and look at the land now. Now, let's see, I said the southern boundary is in Summit County at Bath Road with a small section down to include the Indian Mound parking area. And it extends all the way up into Cuyahoga County with the northern boundary of Rockside Road. Only about half of the land is owned by you and me as part of the National Park Service land. A number of parks and compatible areas are within the recreation area, and I mentioned a couple of those, even though they are administered by other groups. Now, I just want to show you just sort of in the middle of it. This is from the Route 82 bridge going across the valley, and this is looking north into the area called Pinery Narrows. Yes, there were pine in there. A lot of them have been cut. But this is the river. This is pulled from the river to supply the canal, and the canal is over in here somewhere. And it's winter time, and you can really see it at that time. It may be a little softer seeing it in the summer, and it is, but you can see it at that way. In the winter, you can see all the ridges and everything. Now, Furnace Run Park, and you are seeing the Daffodil Trail there first, and then you're seeing some of the geese on the ice over at the shelter house. Well, some of them are on the water, some of them are on the ice. So Furnace Run Park with this one, Deep Block Quarry Park, and we'll see that in a few minutes, Hampton Hills Park and O'Neill Woods, those are all handled by the Metro Park serving Summit County. Hale Farm and Village is part of the Western Reserve Historical Society. Golf courses, and I show you Autumn on the Brandywine Golf Course. Ski resorts, scout camps, Blossom Music Center, and Porthouse Theater are also in Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area. Now, more on some of these later. Not all of them, but some of them. Water is a major component of the recreation area. The Cuyahoga River flows north from Bath Road to Rockside Road. Now, let me just show you a map that I did of some of the major tributaries. Here's Yellow Creek. Bath Road runs right across in here, and I got Peninsula labeled, and Rockside Road is way up in here. And this is the Cuyahoga, and those are some of the tributaries. numerous tributaries, and I don't have a number here, but anyhow, it loses from this point to that point, it loses 130 feet of elevation, and ending at Rockside Road at about 600 feet above sea level. Some of those tributaries are quite small, but starting at the southern end, here are 9 of the prominent ones. Yellow Creek, which you might be able to see, Furnace Run, and Furnace Run is a biggie, Salt Run, Haskell Run, goes right by the Visitors Center at Happy Days, Spring Run, and I can show you a picture of Columbia Run. That's it in wintertime. Brandywine Creek, and Brandywine Creek at this point is really got a lot of sediment in it, and it's really pouring through with the melting snow. And then Chippewa Creek, and I mentioned Tinker's Creek before. Now, this is Starr Mound. This is not far from Botsam Mound, which you've already seen. After the last glaciers retreated, people lived in the Cuyahoga Valley. A number of mounds or small forts are still there. These early people were hunter-gatherers, and their sites were not permanent. Gradually, some agriculture in the floodplains became important, and living sites became more permanent. That's a little bit of cornfield still in the floodplain areas. Then, after centuries of using the beautiful valley, in about 1550, these people were destroyed by the American Indian tribe called the Eries. In the 1650s, the Eries, in turn, were wiped out by the Iroquois. Now, the Iroquois were the 5 nations: the Mohawks, the Oneidas, the Onondagas, the Cayugas, and the Senecas. And then a 6th nation was added later on, the Tuscawaras. Then, in the years while the Iroquois were occupied with internal problems and problems with the French, the beautiful valley was used as common hunting, fishing, and farming ground by such tribes as the Ottawas, Mingos, Delawares, Chippewas, and Wyandots. In the valley, there was no warfare during this time. Now, it's interesting to note that in 1669 or in 1670, depending on which history book you're looking at, LaSalle probably used the Cuyahoga River right through the recreation area down to Old Portage while en route to the Ohio River. During some of this time, French trappers were in the Cuyahoga Valley. There was a French fur trading station on the river at Boston, and this is the towpath at Boston. In 1745, English traders also came into the area. Pontiac from the Ottawas and Logan Mingos had villages in the Cuyahoga Valley. In 1786, Congress, in exchange for Connecticut dropping claims to other western lands, granted 3.5 million acres as a Connecticut Western Reserve. In 1795, 3 million acres were sold to the Connecticut Land Company, and the remainder on out west was the Firelands. Now, the Firelands were supposedly given to people, especially along the Connecticut shore, whose places were burned by the British in the War of 1812. However, they didn't tell them that the Firelands were off limits, because they had been, it had been agreed that nobody but American Indians would go into the Firelands. Because of low water, David Hudson came down from Lake Erie on the Cuyahoga River only as far as a spot near Boston, right near this place, on his way to the present-day Hudson. Many settlers came to the same place on the Cuyahoga River on the way to their land. Now, remember, my picture was taken when the river was high during the winter time, and we'd had snow melt. It wasn't that high when Mr. Hudson came along. In the 1820s, Jim Brown and his brother Dan were running an illegal business of counterfeiting in the valley. Later, in 1825 to 26, Jim Brown opened a store and a tavern at Boston. And I think this is the building here. It was actually put up across the river, but it was moved to this location in 1835. Now, I get my information from plaques, and I've told people, I see it in a book that this store here, which is being made into a canal boat building museum, will be opening in October of 1996. I've been told that that was the Jim Brown house, and then other people in the Park Service said, no, this was. But this other one, they say, was the Boston Land and Manufacturing Company store, and that's the one being made into the museum. In 1825 to 27, the Ohio and Erie Canal was built right through the beautiful valley. In 1826, Jonathan Hale built Hale Homestead. And Stephen Frazee built the Frazee House. Now, the Frazee House, I looked this up. Somebody told me I should tell what architecture these houses were. Well, I don't know that much about it, so I looked some of them up. And this is listed as the vernacular federal architecture of this house. I hope that means something to you. The building that is now the Canal Visitor Center was built in 1827. It has been a lock tender's house, a tavern, and a grocery store during its many years of service. Its restoration is to the year 1906, and an extra feature is a restored Lock 38 at its front door. The Wallace House at Brandywine Falls on the eastern side of the recreation area, just north of I-271, was built in 1848 and is now a bed and breakfast inn. And I'm told that this is Western Reserve Greek Revival architecture here. In 1810, George Wallace had a grist mill and indeed a small industrial park in the area by the waterfall. But it was his son who actually built the house that you're looking at. In 1853, Alexander's Mill, now called Wilson's Mill, was built, and it's the last remaining operating mill on the canal. Now, I believe that's the entire canal, but I know it is through the recreation area. The Stanford House, operated by American Youth Hostels Incorporated, is on an old dairy farm north of Boston. The Boston Cemetery is noteworthy as a resting place of a number of Valley residents of the 1800s, including the counterfeiter Jim Brown. And the snow that you see in the background is the snow of Boston Mill Ski Resort. The paper mill town of Jate, this one, built in 1906 at the junction of Riverview and Vaughan Road, now we're over in Cuyahoga County now, is now the headquarters of the Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area. In the 1930s, the Happy Days Visitor Center on Route 303, east of Peninsula, was built by the Civilian Conservation Corps, and you're seeing it with a heavy load of snow. Many park programs are held here because of its size and its central location. And the Happy Days is the second largest wormy chestnut building in the world. The chestnut got hit by the blight all along the Appalachian chain and is no longer with us. Now, it's quite easy to visit the covered bridge on Everett Road. It's for foot traffic only, and it's a 1986 rebuilding using as much of the old timber as possible for the bridge that was actually destroyed in a Furnace Run flood in 1975. Station Road Bridge goes back to 1881. In the valley, just south of the Route 82 bridge, is another structure worth seeing. And from the parking lot, you cross it to get on the towpath trail. And here is the Route 82 bridge in the background with the Station Road Bridge in the foreground. Peninsula, and here's what it looked like long ago. Peninsula is a small town with a recreation area wrapped around it. Route 303 goes right through it, but this town is a National Historic District. The Boston Township Hall, and I think it's still being restored, is somewhat of a landmark. And the Bronson Church, which belongs to the Summit County Historical Society, is well known. Right on, both of those are right on 303. Even with all of its beauty, this valley is known for its diversity and beauty. Even with all of its history, this valley is known for its diversity and beauty. The terrain goes from floodplains along the Cuyahoga River to high ridges on the edges of the valleys. The Cuyahoga River bends, flows, goes around curves that are candidates for oxbow lakes, and in general makes a major contribution to the beauty. Wetlands add their habitat and thus increase the species of flora and fauna. Beaver have been at work on many of the tributaries of the Cuyahoga River. In some of the flatlands at these low levels, farming is still in evidence, and barns can still be seen. That's some of the farming area there. This is sweet corn. And there's one of those. You're going to see the house associated with this one later on. This is the Coonrad barn. With some exceptions, well, wait just a minute, but quite a few areas have gone back to Mother Nature, and we'll see that in just a moment. With some exceptions, the slopes are held in place with trees. Since this is part of the central hardwood region, most of the trees are hardwoods, but this is not virgin growth. If you see them in their autumn coloration, you will be amazed at the variety. You're seeing a maple right here. This land is also blessed with deep ravines and sharp ridges. And believe me, it's awfully hard to show how deep a ravine is from a picture. And then here's a view across in midsummer, and the Ohio Turnpike is right over in that area. But a beautiful view and a distant view there. In some of these ravines and so forth, you'll find Canadian hemlock, a leftover from the ice ages. And this is, the cones are colored here by the setting sun. And a fine tree it is. It was sort of brought down by the glaciers, and it survived, and so we still have it today. And up on top, where the ground flattens out, as I mentioned before, native species are taking over. And this is what some of that kind of land looks like. Once some of these areas actually supported agriculture. The ledges alone would make this valley a place to visit. To see this wonderland of rock and trees and openings at Kendall Ledges is worth the trip. Yes, there is some walking required, no doubt about it. And the waterfalls, and here I'm showing you Blue Hen Falls. That's one of them, and Brandywine is another one. Those are two of the easy ones to get to. They reward you with moments that you'll treasure. Kendall Lake is the largest lake in the Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area, but two others bear mentioning. Horseshoe Lake is on Major Road, southwest of Peninsula. And Indigo Lake, which is an old quarry, is farther south, just off Riverview Road. And it is completely frozen over in my picture and actually has snow on top of it. Now, besides the vegetation mentioned, wildflowers, wetland plants, and shrubs of many kinds are found in this beautiful valley. And this is the native orchid. This is the lady slipper, the yellow lady slipper. Looks more golden to me than yellow. And then I always use this plant, the skunk cabbage, to say that spring has arrived. Wildlife includes deer, and these two were digging the snow away so that they could get grass under it in midwinter. But deer, beaver, muskrat, coyote, geese, ducks, and a good variety of smaller animals, including a wide variety of birds. Now we're going to look at just one of the metro parks serving Summit County, Deep Lock Quarry. Deep Lock at 17 feet is the deepest lock on the entire Ohio and Erie Canal. Use of the quarry started in 1856 and continued for almost a century. In addition to providing building material, it was the source of the material for grindstones for the processing of grain. And grindstones out of this quarry were shipped over into Europe as well as the United States. Now, Tinker's Creek Gorge and Bridal Veil Falls are in the Bedford Reservation, a park operated by the Cleveland Metro Parks. You use the Gorge Parkway to get to this area, which is a national natural landmark. And you're looking at the beautiful view down into the gorge there in midwinter. And when I went in to take a picture of Bridal Veil Falls, which is on another little creek that empties into Tinker's, it was like a fairyland. I was the only one there. We had had no snow at home, and 5 inches had fallen up in here. And it was really quite a nice sight. Now, Tinker's Creek flows under the Ohio and Erie Canal, and thus the canal was at an aqueduct at that point. This is the same creek that you're seeing under here that came down in that beautiful view you saw a moment ago. And this feature can be seen right along Canal Road. And we'll see that picture, that aqueduct from a different angle again before we're through. Hiking is probably the most favored sport in Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area. But since the opening of the towpath trail, bicycling has increased dramatically. And canoeing will be in the recreation area in the warm months. I am told that horses can be used and bridle trails are available. I guess I knew that, but no rental of horses is available in the area right at the moment. 2 areas, Boston Mills and Brandywine, have resources for downhill skiing. But cross-country skiing can be done on regular trails and at Kendall Hills. But watch out at Kendall Hills if you're using those hills, because they're the favorite spot for sledding. And I guess they come down and they can't guide very good, and they would run into you, so be careful. Picnic areas are plentiful and widespread, and a few shelters are available when reserved for large groups. This is a group of Sierra Clubbers. We have some outings in the National Recreation Area, and this was one of them. But I wanted to show you one of those large shelters that's available. This is the Kendall Ledges shelter. Now, those lakes provide 2 types of recreation, fishing and ice skating. And then in the summer, thousands of people spend time attending a concert at Blossom Music Center, which is the summer home of the Cleveland Orchestra. One more kind of transportation is available in the area, the Cuyahoga Valley Scenic Railroad. It operates on tracks owned by the National Park Service and runs on the west side of the Cuyahoga River, except in the peninsula area. Bridges just north, and this is the North Bridge, and south of Peninsula take it to the east side for a short distance. Since the railroad in 1880 replaced the canal as the best method of transport, its presence helps to complete the transportation picture. Now remember, we are talking about a national recreation area. We are not talking about a national park. We would not have those cornfields. We probably would not have the railroad in a national park. But they are very much a part of a national recreation area. And that rural aspect of it and the farming will go on. Hale Farm in Western Reserve Village has been mentioned before, but it requires a few more words. In addition to the homestead of Jonathan Hale, a village is gradually being put together with buildings from within the Connecticut Western Reserve. This one is the Goldsmith House. At various times you can see spinning and weaving of wool, the potter working clay, the blacksmith working iron, and the glass blower turning out fragile glassware. And you can see the salt box. go west on Ira Road and you can see the village as the road swings due west. The Cuyahoga Valley Environmental Education Center on